He should have never been in a cell by himself. The Aboriginal inmates at Long Bay knew this. They tried to look after Eddie, but he didn't have a chance. He was drugged up, stuck in a cell by himself without support, and then he was given a TV with a power cord. That was a very wicked thing to give to a man who was drugged up, confused and depressed. The coroner, who investigated Ed's death, found that nothing had been done by the prison system to care for him. He had special needs, but the prison system did nothing to help him. They drugged him up and they kept him away from his family. For Eddie, this was like torture. We have been living with the pain of losing Eddie for over 20 years. Our second son, Stanley, was very badly affected by the loss of his brother. He was only 17 years old when Eddie went to jail. Stanley never got to see Eddie and talk with him again as brothers. He had many problems of his own and he never really got the help after the time that he spent in jail. There was no support for Stanley to help him after he was released. The last 2 months have been very hard for us to bear after Stanley was shot by police at his auntie's house in Seven Hills in November last year. In all this time, we have been given very little information by the New South Wales Police. We know that 1.5 of the bullets that were found in Stanley's body. The shot that killed him was fired at his chest. Why did the police shoot our son to kill him? Why not restrain him in other ways? 4 police were in the house, so they did not need to shoot at his chest, that's for sure. We demand justice. The terrible tragedy of Aboriginal deaths in custody must finally stop. Families like ours should not have to suffer this pain no more. Thank you. The 26th of January represents our survival. 26th of January 1838, a massacre happened just outside of Moree, the Waterloo Creek Massacre. I'd like to read a statement on behalf of one of the grandchildren who survived that massacre, Polly Cutman. On the 26th of January 1838, 184 years ago, young Peter Cutmore watched in terror as his people were slaughtered by the Waterloo Creek Massacre. He was born a traditional Wallaroo man at Terry High. Peter Cutmore, the first, is the only documented survivor of the Waterloo Creek Massacre and the first Aboriginal man recorded living at Terry High. It is this day, January 26th, that the descendants of Peter Cutmore have chosen to retell the story of their ancestor, so the truth about his survival can be acknowledged for the amazing legacy he has left behind. Not just for his family, but for the whole of the Kamilaroi people. Peter Cutmore was a young boy, but his family oral history recounts how, escaping the murderers, he was able to survive by hiding in a log. It is still disputed how many Wallaroo people lost their lives during the rampage slaughter by Major Nunn and his party, which continued as they chased the mob down the creek, killing every Aboriginal person in sight. Hundreds of Wallaroo people were tortured, slaughtered. Peter's story was recounted in the Town and Country in 1874. Little is known of the lives of the survivor of the massacres, but you can bet your bottom dollar a lot of Aboriginal people you see today, the reason why we're here today is because they survived, our grandparents survived that massacre. Peter Cutmore remained on his traditional country, which became part of Terry High Station. Several decades until he was forced off his traditional land following the introduction of the Patrol Protection Act in New South Wales. Peter walked his family to establish Top Camp, which is in Moree. This camp became a home for many surviving Kamilaroi families who still live in Moree today. Peter of Wallaroo, who became later known as Peter Cutmore the First, has been waiting 184 years for justice. His His descendants will not let him wait any longer. Thank you. We need to tell the truth. We need a truth commission here in New South Wales. And how we're going to address that is only through a Truth and Justice Commission. I'm the founder and CEO of the New South Wales Aboriginal Land Rights Association. Today we've launched our campaign over the next 12 months to ensure that at the next New South Wales state election we can advocate for a New South Wales Truth and Justice Commission. We can find out the truth, what happened here in this country and this land, find out why our people are still renting on our own land. We've been renting for too long. We should be owning our land, but we're renting on our own country. How long are we going to keep renting for? Aboriginal people across New South Wales, we don't own our land. That's got to change. And how we can change that is through a Truth and Justice Commission. I encourage you all to look up, keep an eye out in the next couple of months for our campaign and join our campaign. Write to your local members, ensure that we tell the truth about how New South Wales, how it started. Literally. We need to tell the truth. We can only get that through a truth-telling commission, and we need justice. We want our land back. We've already got rights to our land, but we don't own it. I've never spoken up in a crowd before like this. Thank everyone for coming out today. We're going to head off very soon, so first we're going to do a silent march from here to the Australia Hall, and that's in commemoration of the 1938 march that happened here on the steps of Town Hall, over to Elizabeth Street at Australia Hall. There we'll be met by the Metro League Council, who will be also giving a speech, and then we'll proceed on to the Yarman Festival. Thank you everyone for your time today. I'd like to hand it back over to Dave, who will facilitate the rest of the... Thank you.
Well, obviously I'm not on today, but yeah. I'm Lizzie J. All right. Okay, next to the microphone, I get to introduce to you a beautiful sister to share stories of real solidarity. It's a Palestinian sister who understands exactly how we feel about the genocide that goes on, all the way from Dayball to Gaza. Let's not forget, genocide is national, international. So please make welcome to this microphone, beautiful sister Hamar. Thank you.
I would like to begin by acknowledging Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to all First Nations people here today. Sovereignty was never ceded, and this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. I would like to thank the organisers today for inviting Palestinians to speak at Invasion Day. This day of mourning really highlights our long-standing commitment to Black Palestinian solidarity on this continent. Similar to Invasion Day, the day we commemorate is the Nakba, which occurred 74 years ago. 700,000 Palestinians, 80% of the population were expelled and ethnically cleansed from our homelands, including my grandparents. During these 74 years, we have been denied our right to return. Our lands have been subjugated to an illegal military occupation. Our people have been abused and killed. The colonial regime is practicing the crime of apartheid against our people. Nakba is not a one-off event. It is ongoing for Palestinians. Every day is Nakba Day, like every day is Survival Day and a day of mourning for First Nations people. know colonisation, we know apartheid, we know segregation and exclusion, we know police and military brutality. We know what it feels like when a day is marked as a celebration for a foundation of a settler colony, but the truth is these days only mark war. They mark genocide against the Indigenous peoples. And as a daughter of dispossession, I recognise I am complicit here in dispossession of First Nations people. I also know my role and responsibility to fight injustice here and there, to fight colonisation here and there. Today also marks the 50th anniversary of the Aboriginal Tent Embassy in the or so-called Canberra, a political site of resistance against colonial rule and the site of the longest continuous protest in the country and in the world. In this settler colony, all progressive movements have been led by First Nations peoples, their ancestors, elders and activists who have been resisting violent systems and structures for over 2 centuries. Our movement for a free Palestine has been powered by solidarity from First Nations people. We recognise that our movement is connected to and supported by Indigenous peoples globally, where together we work to dismantle the systems and structures of colonial and racial violence which we have been subjugated to. From the ethnic cleansing in Nakab, where just last week Israel demolished 6 Palestinian Bedouin villages in order to seize their land, to the destruction of sacred Aboriginal sites at Duke and George to serve the obscene greed of mining companies, from the Israeli authorities' torture and abuse of Palestinian protesters, including children, to the over 500 Aboriginal deaths in custody since 1991, we are in solidarity. We are in solidarity today and every day in our struggle. We are in solidarity today and every day in our struggles against brutal racist regimes imposing colonial violence on Indigenous populations from Gadigal to Gaza. We saw this solidarity in action during the recent Sydney Festival boycott. The Sydney Festival accepted $20,000 from the colonial apartheid Israeli regime. And when we, an intersectional and intergenerational group of Palestinian, Arab and Jewish artists and activists and organisations called on the Sydney Festival to drop the partnership and divest from the apartheid regime, they refused. As a result, we initiated a boycott campaign with over 100 artists and creatives withdrawing to the festival. Close to 40% of the festival was disrupted. What we saw follow was inspiring Black Palestinian solidarity in action. Some of the first to withdraw from the festival were First Nations artists and writers, including Amy McGuire, Barker, Carla Dickens, and the theatre company Marajuku. All power and respect to them. Artists who heeded our call to boycott recognise that supporting Indigenous communities in their colonial struggles starts here in so-called Australia, but it doesn't end here. And we must support colonised communities all around the world. This was epitomised in the statement of the theatre production 7 Methods of Killing Kylie Jenner, where they noted, the board fails to acknowledge the history and effects of apartheid, which was created on stolen land before being exported as a tool of colonial violence overseas. Some so-called progressives were shocked by this boycott as if it were the first of its kind in this colony, but it was not. When we look at the history of the Aboriginal Tent Embassy, as police moved in to take down tents at Parliament in 1972, support and solidarity was drawn from unions and the working class to defend the embassy from all across so-called Australia. And indeed, they heeded the call from Aboriginal civil society and did not cross the picket line. To progressives, except for Palestine, it is time to recognise all our struggles are intertwined all around the world. And in order to guarantee our freedom from Gadigal land to Palestine and beyond. We must abolish all oppressive systems everywhere. The Sydney Festival boycott proved that trans-global solidarity and resistance in this colony in the 21st century is indeed possible. Justice and freedom here for First Nations people is connected to freedom and justice in Palestine. We cannot be free until we are all free everywhere.
Give it up again for Palestine. Thank you. I'm going to read out a poem. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain, to let my people go. Who's that gabba holding on? Let my people go. Must think we are really gone. Let my people go. Who's that gabba standing there? He don't think we really care. Go tell it on the mountain to let my people go. Black man knows he has the right. Let my people go. Black man knows he's in the right. Let my people go. Black man claims his tribal land. White man, oh, shall not understand. Go tell it on the mountain to let my people go. Go tell it to Canberra, Brisbane, Sydney, everywhere. Go tell it to Melbourne to let my people go. Go tell it to Sydney to let my people go.
Come on, people, louder! Let's make a statement here, people. Want to thank everyone that donated all that money to the families to get home, you know, for all the deaths in custody. But just going through there, I've seen all my families there, all my little nephews, my cousins, my Nanama people. You know, it means so much to me, you know. But what I want to do, we've got two more speakers. This man has fought on the battle with Gary Foley, Charlie Perkins with the Freedom Ride. Anybody knows Ashfield over there? This man feeds thousands of people every day. And I'd like to introduce you to Reverend Bill Cruz.
Let the Truth-Telling Commission begin now. Right now. Right now. We all heard Kaya just a little while ago telling a story. We've heard all these stories. And I want to say, Kaya, I heard you. I heard your pain. I heard your anger. I heard your suffering. I heard. We all heard, didn't we? Tell all these people, we all heard you. We all heard you. That's how a commission begins. It begins by us hearing and sharing and making sure the people we talk to hear and share too. Don't let them say, oh, I wasn't involved. Because in a way, when we don't listen, we're all involved. Make sure they hear. We heard, the wind heard, the blue sky heard, these buildings heard. But the wind and the sky and the sand will blow these buildings away, like it will blow governments away. But it won't It won't, the sun will always be here. The loving sun will always be here. And as we tell the story, the loving sun gives us the energy to pass it on. God bless you guys, God bless you. Your cause is right, your cause is just, your cause will move governments like these buildings. Probably take a bit of wind to blow them away, but it will work. In the end, it will work. And then all those people, I'm sure those in their graves don't want us so much to mourn them, but to build a better world. And that's what we all can do. So hear these stories, pass them on, make sure the people hear, and then the change will begin to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. As he said, the truth starts right here, right now, with all of you. You hear every story, I want you to go home today and share. I want you to go, asking who to share it to? Share it to your Uber driver, your bus driver, your neighbour, your teacher, your doctor, your lawyer. Share and share and share, and let Australia understand that we've had enough. We're sick of standing here screaming on a microphone like young Kaya said. 200 years plus, 200 plus years of genocide against our people. We are only now less than 3%, and half of that percentage is locked up behind fucking bars. And then a third of that percentage is continuing to be stolen from a hospital as we stand here and speak. Let's not forget, sorry Day did not stop the stolen generations. The young boys you saw dance today, their father was stolen. My father and 13 siblings were stolen. I dare say there's how many of us in the crowd? Raise your hand if you're from a stolen generation or are still fighting the stolen system. Look around, people, look around. Just because Kevin Rudd said sorry doesn't mean shit. Okay? It doesn't mean shit. We are still being stolen at a higher rate than they can breed. Our babies are being stolen from the vaginal canal at hospitals like the RPA, like Prince of Wales. Get behind the system. They say the system is broken. Be fucked if it's broken. The system is perfect. It's running perfect, just how they planned it. So don't let people tell you the system is broken and we need to fix it. We need to break the fucking system. We are the people. We are the power. Whew. Thank you, and thank you. As I said, go home and share, please. Because understand that mainstream TV and Australian society, they don't want to hear this. They don't want to see this. They don't want to feel the truth. That is their privilege, that they benefit on genocide. So please go home and share and take care of each other. Now I get to introduce to you to the microphone a beautiful deadly sister who's always there on the front line, always there on the back line, always there at police stations, making sure our children are treated as properly as we can. Please welcome dear Sister Teresa.
So yes, my name is Teresa Monta. I'm from La Perouse community. I live in this inner city now. I just want to say, looking out at the crowd, you started to get a lot bigger, and you're a sight really for sore eyes, There's a lot of sorry business, there's a lot of sadness, there's a lot of violence that goes on with us, over-policing, death, early death. It's days like this that are really important. We're all standing on our feet and you people are here to be with us, to stand, to walk for something, for justice. Because as the sister said, we need to try to make sure that there is fairness and justice in the world that we live in. I just wanted to share with you, I'm in my 5th decade now. But when I was in my second decade, in my 20s, I grew up and lived out at La Perouse, which is out at Botany Bay. And I've been talking about this ever since that day, nearly every day, every week, since I was 20, right? How intergenerational grief and loss works. Our children see us struggle with something that's hard to bear. Violence, micro-violence, insensitivity, disregard, disrespect, or just plain ignorance, but you can't plead ignorant all the time, you know. So this system, like we're calling out, needs reform, it needs fixing. And we can't do that without soldiers like you people standing up and defending the rights of Indigenous people, of young people, of people, the Palestinian people, people who are locked up and starving in other countries, people who are impacted by what's happening around the world. You know, we can't fix everything, but today, with this turning out like this, you're doing something that's uplifting, that's helping. So, when people are left by themselves, or when the young ones see their elders struggling, they take that on, okay? Now, the 26th of January 1988 was the bicentennial of this country, and the community that I come from, which is out at Botany Bay and in the inner city here, well, normally you don't see us walking around, you know? There's not many Aboriginal people that you see walking the streets here. A while back, I was shown a picture of Redfern, of the block, and it was put up, right, like it is, oh, this is squalor, this is horrible. And I looked at this pinprick of land, and I thought, the shame is not on us, the shame is on this society. Because if you look in another country, Morocco is a giant big country, a big, you know, where are our people, where are they, where have they gone? The 26th of January, they're all either in jail, children, women and men. And after they've been, had violence done to them, we go to the system, we ask for support from the system. And what do we get? Nothing. No coroner can help us, no courts can help us. Brothers don't go to the UN and they want us to respect this domestic law, this country. Why do we trust them? So I'm thankful that you're here. Just like I tell you, on the 26th of January 1988, and I want to call out to every auntie and uncle, sisters and brothers, non-Indigenous people who came, maybe there's not that many, they're getting thin on the ground now, who came on the 26th of January 1908 and claimed back the streets of Sydney, right? Out where we live, it's a quiet little place most of the time, and there are only about 28 houses on the old reserve, the mission we call it, right? Because we've been locked down in missions and reserves in the protection era. We thought we'd be there by ourselves, but the people travelled. They got up on their feet. And how they got here? By hook or by crook, on the wing of a prayer. They broke down in country towns. Some of them died on the way. They made it here to stand with our people. We watched the first fleet re-enter. On that day, they changed the dialogue, the story. It was never again one colonial settler story. We stood up and we said, no, there's a different story. We have not got justice. We were promised a treaty back then by Bob Hawke. And then we lived on that, right? 8 years later, I think, Yota Yindi wrote a song. Treaty just like writing in the sand. I saw Mum Shirl on that day holding toilet rolls up on the top of Larperee's Hill where the little beach is. She said, I will be long dead. They are not going to give us our treaty. Every second word was a swear word. I jumped back behind my mother. My mother and father, they passed too. 2017, I lost both of them. Yep. What you have done is what the people did for us on that day, on the 26th of January 1988. I don't carry intergenerational loss from that day. I never want to let it to be forgotten. It was a beautiful day of solidarity. The people marched us. And we should have got our treaty and our respect back then. So I hope you're all safe. I want to thank you all for coming and hope you have a good day all together. Thank you.
Loud and proud for the Yuan people, Teresa, hey sister. We're nearly going on this big march. I've got two more speakers together. Great friends of mine, but before I introduce them, I just want you to go back to the foundation. 1967, we weren't even known as people in our own country, people. Flora and fauna. We had activists like William Cooper, Jack Patton, the families here today. The foundation of our people that fought for the struggle. And we've got people here today that I want to acknowledge, who's always here at the rallies, is Denny Kim. Love Denny. Now I want to introduce you to my brothers and sisters, Paul Silver and Lizzie Jarrett.
Okay, just give me a minute because what I'm about to read to you today is not my words. I'm channeling my auntie Latona Dungay, who's the mother of David Dungay. Today she can't be here for herself as she is in Canberra. Talk to me then? No. But yeah, she's in Canberra, making sure her message is heard as far and as wide as we can. Because as you heard from our family members today, the Australian government has kicked us in the guts. 6 years we've gone through coronial inquests. We've gone through work safety. We've gone through the DPP, who's been advised from a senior prosecuting barrister, Philip Bolton, that there is enough to charge the 6 murderers that took away my cousin's life that day back in 2015. So please bear with me if I get a bit choked up, because these are the words of David's mother. And on top of that, before I say her speech, give respect to the beautiful family members I can see here today. Reynolds family, Michaela and Newmob, love and respect. Justice for Nathan Reynolds. Do not forget his name. If you don't know his name, find out who he is. Follow his family. Give them their support. Sorry, sister, to put me on the spotlight, but yeah. Another beautiful sister standing right here, Sister Vicky. Justice for Stanley Russell, who you saw in the news was shot dead by the police in his auntie's house.
Justice for the Russell brothers!
Yes. Justice for the Murray family. Justice for the Waterloo massacre. Justice for all First Nations that are facing an injustice that is Australia today. Whew, okay. Hello. I want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we are standing upon right now, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I acknowledge the Eora elders, past and present too. This always was and always will be Gadigal land. My auntie's name is Latona Dungay. I am the mother of David Dungay Jr. Well, here we are, and it's the 26th of January. They call it Australia Day. Bugger that. It's Invasion Day. It all started back in 1788 when the British invaded Gadigal land and stole it from the traditional owners of this country. The colonisers continue to use force against our people, Let me tell you about a young warrior who fought in the war against the oppressors. His name is David Dungay Jr., my son. My son was killed in Long Bay Prison Hospital on the 29th of December 2015. That was 6 years ago. My beautiful son died in Long Bay Prison Hospital. He was eating a packet of biscuits in his cell, and that's all he was doing. Then 6 big prison guards overpowered him and held him down face first. David kept yelling out, "I can't breathe," until he was dead. No one listened to him, even though he was in a place where he was supposed to be cared for. David was in a hospital at Long Bay Prison. They left him for 22 hours a day in his cell. How was he meant to get better in those sort of conditions? On the day that he died, he wasn't a danger to himself. The biscuits weren't going to kill my son. The only danger to David's life that day was from the actions of the white prison guards. They moved him by force for no reason. They held him down and they refused to listen to his cries for help. The coroner held an inquest, and guess what? The prison guards didn't even need to come and look me in the face. They gave evidence by video link. And what were the coroner's finding? He said nobody was going to face justice for my son's death. There was to be no accountability in his findings. So we asked the DPP to take action and bring us justice. That surely you have to charge these people for killing my son. The DPP said no. So we asked Safe Work New South Wales to intervene. Surely the workplace in the prison was unsafe because my son died. So surely people should be charged for that. Safe Work New South Wales said they weren't interested in charging anyone. It all fits a pattern of violence against us that goes back to 1788. Here's another pattern. It's in the last 30 years, there have been over 500 Aboriginal people die in police custody or in prison. Over 500 deaths, and no one has been held accountable. How can you have over 500 victims and no one gets arrested or charged? I'll tell you why. Because all the victims were Aboriginal. See the pattern in all of this? The system is violent to us. The colonisers came to our land and they kill us. And they can get away with it. And nothing ever gets done about it. But it's not all doom and gloom. For we're here today to tell you that we've had enough. This ain't over. My lawyers and I are taking the Australian government all the way to the United Nations. We're going to keep fighting until I can hold them accountable for killing my son and for never doing a damn thing about David's death or the thousands of other deaths of Aboriginal people. I want justice. I want justice where the life of an Aboriginal man is worth something. I'm going to keep fighting until we live in a country where black lives do matter. Thank you. Love and respect going out to Martin McConnell in Canberra and all those mob down there that have been fighting for 50 years to make sure we are heard, we are seen, and like my auntie said, we're not going to go away. This is not going to stop. The only way we get to stop this is with all you beautiful people out here helping us to make that change, helping to share these stories you hear, the heartbreak, the oppression, the injustice that continues 2022. Happy New Year. What's so happy about genocide? Where's the happiness? Because I know for a fact I ain't having no beers, I ain't chucking no barbecue. I'm going to cuddle my children, love my family, and be strong and stand here again another day in the colony that continues to oppress us. Yeah, definitely. And a big shout out today to all of our beautiful brothers and sisters that are behind bars. You know, a big shout out to all their families that can't have visits. We are restricted from even visits now. They're using COVID as an excuse. Well, I tell you what, there's a bigger, more lethal disease that walks this road right now than COVID. It's called colonialism. And isolation will not fix this. It's the togetherness of us. It's the bringing together of people that will help fight the pandemic that is colonialism. So again, I thank you all. I just have a few short messages before we start marching. And just heads up everybody, please understand, at the beginning of the march to Australia Hall, this is a silent march. We won't be chanting, we'll be taking in the commemoration of all the fallen warriors and soldiers and all the hurting families that walk with us today and have talked today. So please understand, once we finish at Australia Hall, don't worry, we're going to make sure Gadigal Street gets to hear all of us. Yes, my sister, buddy. Yeah. Okay, so now it's time for all of us to get ready for the silent march. I'm asking, if possible, that the people this way, can we please make a hole, please make a pathway, because as I want the 50th anniversary banner to be in front, and all families, any families in the crowd, although you haven't spoken or come to the microphone, please come behind and join us in the front line, because this is what it's about, our injustice. We need our families on the front line behind these banners. Please, elders and children, behind the banner. Thank you very much, everybody. And again, always one, always ready! Wait there. Come on, the last bit of sound before we be silent. Always one! Thank you very much. Give love and thanks to all of you. Keep yourself safe. Stay healthy, stay solid.
I don't even know where Australia is, so... It's on a list, it's around the corner, so I think it's locked. I'll just, yeah. So yeah, go hustle, my friend. Great job. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for calling. Yep. Oh, you're right. Yeah. Thank you.
Hey, we're going to move now, so bear with us, or do you want to come off? It's going to be moving. Do you want to... Okay, boots. Okay, so I'm going to stand... Hello, how are you? Control the spaceship, right? I'll just shovel.
Okay,
Remember it's a silent march, silent march.
Remember it's a silent march, please. Okay? Ready? Go.
way to go.
Thank you very much.
Mấy trăm ăn nhang rồi.
I saw one with skin colour hat. Yeah.
Solidarity and unity is about. But we also like to remind, as they did on that day, our respects go to the Gadigal, to Doringa, to Colby, the patriarchs and matriarchs who led the Gadigal in 1788, and to all the Gadigal, all of our tremendous warriors who assisted the Gadigal, be they Gamaragal leaders like Mosquito, Bidjigal leaders like Pemaway or Tedbury, his son. We're all united in fighting for what's ours, to be treated equally, fairly and included. And I stand here in 2022 and say, let's review the 10-point plan. Let's look at whether rights are actually occurring for our people, not just in Gadigal country, acknowledging whether you're a Noongar in WA, a Palawar in Tasmania, or maybe a Larrakia in Darwin. We are all First Peoples and we all deserve the same rights. And lastly, to say I'm proud to represent Metro Land Council, who stands as the first local land council of Australia. In 1970s, we were meeting and calling for land rights here in Gadigal country. But today we celebrate 50 years since some of our mob got in a vehicle and travelled down to Canberra and pitchforked an umbrella that would become our 10 embassy. So I pay my respects to all those involved 50 years ago in taking the battle back to the new place where they call Canberra as the national capital. And we continue that fight in 222, and hopefully in the next generation we can get there, reach equality, be the first peoples on the world to negotiate a fair treaty. Thank you, Bajuri Gamarua, take care all, get through this day.
Thank you, Brother Nathan. Okay, as you heard the significance of this place, now I get to invite to the mic again the beautiful little powerhouse, Kaya Patton, as she gets to retell the exact same speech that her great-grandfather gave on that day. And let it be known to you all, they weren't allowed through the front door on that day. You had to go through the back lane to understand the significance of how we are now standing at the front door and listening to his great-granddaughter reiterate his words from 1938. Kaya, my sister, all yours.
Thank you everyone, and thank you for coming out and supporting us today on this day of mourning. 84 years ago, before my grandfather took these streets to fight for us, we were still poor and poorer. We weren't even people in our own country. We were citizens here on our own land. My great-grandfather had fought for us, rallied and protest with all his First Nations brothers and sisters, and I'm going to recite his speech that he did on this day 84 years ago. On this day, white people are rejoicing, but we, as Aborigines, have no reason to rejoice on Australia's 150th birthday. On purpose in meeting today is to bring home to the whites of Australia the frightful conditions in which native Aborigines of this continent live. This land belonged to our forefathers 150 years ago. But today, we are pushed further and further into the back. The Aboriginal Progressive Association has been formed to put before the white people the fact that the Aborigines throughout Australia are literally being starved to death. We refuse to be pushed into the background. We have decided to make ourselves heard. White men pretend that the Australian Aboriginal is a low type who cannot be bettered. Our reply to that is, give us a chance. We do not wish to be left behind in Australia's march to progress. We ask for full citizenship rights, including old age pensions, maternity bonus, relief work when unemployed, and the right to full Australian education for our children. We do not wish to be herded like cattle and treated as a special class. As regards the Aboriginal Protection Board of New South Wales, white people in the city do not realise the terrible conditions of slavery under which our people live in the outback districts. I have unanswerable evidence that women of our race are forced to work in return for rations without other payment. Is this not slavery? Do white Australians realise that there is actual slavery in this fair progressive Commonwealth? Yet such is the case. We are looking in vain for white people to help us by charity. We must do something ourselves to draw the public attention to our plight. This is why this conference is held, to discuss ways and means of arousing the conscience of white Australians, to have us in their power, but have hitherto help us. Our children on the government stations are badly fed and poorly educated. The result is that when they get out into life, they feel inferior to white people. This is not a matter of race. This is a matter of education and opportunity. This is why we ask for a better education and better opportunity for our people. We say this is a disgrace to Australia's name that our people should be handicapped by undernourishment and poor education and then blamed for being backwards. We do not trust the present Aboriginals Protection Board and that we ask for it to abolish. Incompetent teachers are provided on the government stations. This is the greatest handicap put on us. We have 150 years of white men looking after us, and the result is our people are being exterminated. The reason why this conference is called today is that the Aborigines themselves may discuss their problems and try to bring before the notice of the public and of the Parliament what our grievance is and how it may be remedied. We ask for ordinary citizens' rights and fully equal with white Australians. Thank you. I just want to add to that what has changed since then. We've had a story day, but what does story mean when there's no action, when there's no change? Our children are 7 times more likely to be taken from their mothers than non-Indigenous kids. Today, we have more black kids being taken than we had in the stolen generation. Today, you tell me where this is going. You tell me where we're going as a society. If we don't have our allies and everyone here today support us to keep speaking and moving forward, we're only going to go backwards. And that's what they want. That's what this system was built to do, to keep us down. Why? Because they're intimidated by black fellas. Why? Because we're intelligent. We were the first farmers here. We were the first scientists here. We were the first astrologers here. We were the first to do it. We were the first doctors. We were healers. We were medical people. And they took that from us. They took that from us. And they feed us lies, drugs, and alcohol. They keep us down here. They get everybody else from around the world to live here, and they look down upon us because they've been brainwashed. We've been oppressed for too long. Too fucking long. It's time to rise up and stand the fuck up and genocide is still happening today in 2022.
in the city, right? I'm standing here today. I'm speaking to my grandson, Jack Sims, right? And Uncle Jack Phillips, and Uncle Carl Gibbs, and Uncle Jack Patton, and Uncle William Ferguson, okay, and William Cooper. After this in 1938, in 1957, right, I was denied this thing about the neighbours. You know what happened? 1957, my grandson Jack Sims, see where I was standing? He got one of the first speeches, if not the first, from neighbour in 1957. So let us speak out and let us raise up. Let us rally up and we are so good people that we pop up the fucking windows, brother. Let us put it in, brother. Okay? And it's not the rest and everybody along those listening. Have a good survival day. Get ready to rumble. Feel the fire, keep the fire burning. We're going to move along, and then we'll have Brother Main give us the beautiful words going at the next intersection at Broadway. So everyone, please, steadily get behind the banners again. I'll wait there a little now, sorry. I will quickly have a...
So going back to the stolen generation, my sister just recently had her 4 brothers and sisters taken off her by the government. She's going to court to fight for them on the 14th of February. So we'll be holding a protest against stolen generation. So we'll be having a protest from the block down to Surrey Hills Children's Court on the 13th of February and the 14th in a few weeks. So I hope to see you all there to stop this from continuing. Our children are still being taken. The stolen generations have never stopped and it's time to put a stop to it.
All right now, all you little beautiful chargers, even with the banners, let's get to the front line again and make our way to Broadway. And guess what? Now I want to hear your voices. I want to hear you chant. I want everyone to make sure Australia hears us today in Gadigal country, that enough is enough. Australia Day is to be abolished. It's an invasion day. It's a fight for our survival. Let's go.